respect for others. We're not exactly um, what you may want to call a sociable, you know, uh, law abiding, compliant, and it is clear anyway. I mean, and it's not just politics. Take food anywhere. I'm sure Paul and a few others, you have been in some of your workstations parties, and whenever, for example, there is free alcohol, okay, or even free food, yeah. I mean, people who you thought, maybe your colleagues, you thought they are very civil. I mean, you see guys enter into some terrible debauchery. I mean, they will eat, they will overdo things, they will be very wasteful. People will speak nasty. It's like sometimes you just need to prod a little to see, the thin veneer that sometimes, hides the real nature of our society. So sometimes we may feel some type of way when we see it. For me, I think maybe it's about time Kenya we put a mirror in front of ourselves, because this is who we are deep down within. We're very selfish. We're tribal. We, you know, religion in so many ways is only a front. Because I think I came in when the point, Paul was talking about. I mean, what about salvation? Does it not count for something? I mean, that's how I understood it. It's supposed to count for something. Salvation is supposed to be a very big influence to how we behave. But clearly, if you look at just look at people, on a buffet, just a luncheon buffet line, and you see greed. I mean, just see greed. Just see people how they even get into some space. I mean, queuing is not one of those things that come naturally. I mean, we jostle, we hustle, we elbow, we those. So we have somewhere to go. I think we shouldn't feel some type of way. This is who we are. Probably we're making some changes, some small changes. But the truth of the matter is that it's going to take a little while, because what you are seeing is not so much political as it is social. Okay, the political just takes advantage of a culture that is you know, um, very easy to trigger. It's very easy to trigger us, because when there is hate and tribalism is still very close. I mean, you follow some of the blogs. I mean, then you realize there's a lot of hatred. I'm not saying that it's everybody, and clearly there are some changes. I mean, I'm sure, you have, I remember the other day, not too long ago, I was in town late in the evening, and I stopped at some lights, some traffic lights. Of course, there were no other vehicles because it was late in the evening, and guys came behind me on my side, on the other side, and they stopped. Now, is it the norm? No, but are there people who are making genuinely an attempt to try and be respectful, civil, and low, compliant and abiding? There are. Are they the majority? Of course, they are not. Is it a good place to start? Yes, it is. Okay. Is a church having an impact and influence in society? I think it is. I think it is, but is it happening as fast and as we want? Of course not. Okay, so it is a reality check. It's a moment of looking. Like I said earlier, it's about time we took a mirror and put it in. I mean, put it in front of us, and then we'll realize that our divisions are both political, are intra-religious. You would think they're interreligious, Muslim, Christian, Christian, Hindu, etc., etc. It is also intra. I mean, there are people when the ACK, I mean, I've always really enjoyed every time Ole Sapit speaks. I've always felt that he speaks a lot of sense. You know, the present Pope, I forget his name. Um, Many times when he speaks, I find a lot of sense in what he says, spiritually speaking. In fact, sometimes I've had occasion to kind of just tag some few things which he says and send it to people. there's a way in which, like now the thing which they said about the LGBTQ, I mean, I thought that was a very strong stand, that, hey, look, we have no problem with you coming to church, but we will treat you like somebody who needs help. Okay? I mean, that is really bold. So is the church having an impact? It is having an impact. Is it as strong, maybe as fast as we would want it? Maybe not. Okay, so we just have to be realistic that certain changes will not happen very quickly. Civilizing, and I don't want to use the word civilizing, culture, bringing a proper culture. Oh, is that a good way to say it? The correct culture in a society, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, churches are having difficulty doing it. I mean, you can imagine how politics will do it. It will be even much more harder. So I think it's just a reality check. This is where we are. People are angry. People, respond violently most of the time in case something doesn't go their way. It is what it is, and there's a lot of greed. There's a lot of extortion. It is our society. It is our society. So. And the change is very gradual. Sometimes it is insidious. It is so gradual. Sometimes you don't even see it, But is it there? I think it is there. I think it is there. The fact that the bulk of this country is kind of holding out, to me, says something. It says something. The bulk of even the media, I've seen a lot of changes, Of course, there's some element of bias depending on which media, but even there's still some voice of reason. Okay, if you listen closely, you will hear it. You will hear people trying to say, "Hey, come on, let's do this thing right." So we may want to see change very quick and very soon. I think that is a bit presumptuous. It's not going to happen. Is it going to happen? It probably will, from where I sit. Not at the time, not at the schedule that we may want it, because our society is slowly changing, but it is painfully too slow. So I guess that is how I would look at it, Paul. Even this Mandamano thing, I was telling my wife when we were coming, there's a way in which protests or picketing is the proper English word is cathartic. Cathartic is something which you do that helps to release tension. It's like when you are bereaved and you cry. So we normally say tears are cathartic. Okay, the process of doing that is called catharsis. Okay, and when originally people were allowed to picket and do those, in a democratic environment, it was a way of just kind of steaming off. And I was telling my wife, I said, we may be very quick maybe to judge, but losing an election, and especially a close election like the one we had, I don't think it is easy for anybody. And the process of grief must happen to all of us. Denial, anger, depression, negotiation, acceptance, that process has to go through. Okay. We all go through. I mean, I don't know if you have ever supported a candidate in Kenya for election, and I have, and you lost. Okay. Now, the truth of the matter is that you're not the one who was the actual candidate, but the thing pains you so hard. I mean, you're wondering, what has that got to do with me? I wasn't the one who was, standing for that particular position, but then it hurts you. I mean, it really, really hurts you, and especially when you really feel like you have a chance, to win. Why? Because these things matter. I mean, and they don't only matter in Kenya. Look at what America did the other day when Trump, whatever. I mean, America lost it, completely lost it. People went on a rampage and they were all over the, houses of power, and they almost came to the precipice. I mean, for some moment, I thought I was looking at an African country, People are holding those Confederate flags, when there was the North and the South, and the whole thing was now looking quite grim. So it just tells you that this thing is not limited. I mean, losing any loss is pretty. I mean, people lose a football match and hang themselves. Okay, I'm not saying that's how it should be, but I'm just simply saying that if we don't have proper coping mechanism, loss can really get you. I mean, loss can really get you. Loss can really get you. And so for me, I feel if this can be managed, it should be allowed because it is cathartic to me. It should be allowed. I think people should be allowed to scream their head off, say all the nasty things which they think they need to say, because ultimately loss is not easy. I mean, and I can tell you a big bunch of this country is feeling quite dejected, quite dejected. And it's amazing how sometimes a loss, like a political loss, almost overshadows everything else which is working for you, quote unquote. So you may find maybe you're even doing better in business, or nothing much has changed on your end, but the sense of frustration and depression and the feeling of despair and the sense of giving up is so strong that you forget that you are actually doing better than even the person who quote unquote won. I mean, there are people who, to use the term again loosely, won in the election, who are doing worse, who are actually even sleeping hungry. Okay, but then psychologically they're feeling on top of the world. There is somebody who lost in the sense that you understand loss, because maybe their candidate did not win and all that. But they are feeling so terrible that sometimes, they cannot be able to see that their lot is better, than the average Kenyan. So there's a way in which these things are more psychological than real. Okay, that there are people who let me give a good example. So I walk today. I was telling my wife today I had a very long walk. Okay? The weather was fantastic. It's been raining the last couple of days. The last 2 or 3 days it has not been raining. So, but it's nice, green and fresh. It's beautiful time to walk. It's not dusty. It's not that very hot. So today I really walked for a very long distance, and then came back. I was feeling extremely tired, but I really enjoyed my walk today. Now I have 2 cars here. I mean, I can use my car now, but I walked. Let me give you a scenario. Let me give you a scenario here. Show you what I mean. Say I was driving and my car broke 2 kilometers to where I was going. Okay, so I was going for some meeting and then my car broke down and then I had to leave my car and I had to walk. Okay, those 2 kilometers I will feel so horrible. And it's psychological. Why? Because it was not intended. It was not purposed. Yet I can walk for, say, 15 kilometers, feel good about it. I mean, look at the irony. I can walk for 15 kilometers, feel good about it, commend myself for walking, then feel terrible for walking 2 kilometers when I felt I shouldn't have been walking because my car broke down. So the question then becomes, what has changed? Both are walking. Okay. I walk more. If I walk for three hours, I walk, on average about 13, 14 kilometers. Okay. That is far much more. Okay. How come I feel good about it? Why? Because my brain tells me that it is benefiting me and I have purpose to do it. If I have not purpose to do it, your car broke down a kilometer to your home and you have to park it someplace and maybe, so you can have it fixed the next day. How come that 1 kilometer when you walk, you feel terrible about it? All I'm saying is that our brains play tricks on us. You know what I'm saying? Hold the thought. You can comfortably, I mean, and I'm not saying this in any way to try and belittle, the value of, money. I think we all need money, but I'm sure most of us, because I know most of you, If you lost 50 shillings, if you just generally lost 50 shillings, chances are you may not even know you lost 50 shillings. Okay, let's go down now. If you lost 20 shillings today, because 20 shillings, the value now is very low in terms of what you can buy. If you misplace 20 shillings, I don't think you're going to be all over the place making noise. Where's my 20? I mean, you'll be like, okay, I think I have 20 shillings. I don't know, I kept it, and you know, or maybe you don't even know you have 20 shillings. I mean, you placed it somewhere, maybe in the glove compartment of your car or somewhere. Okay, it will not bother you. But how come when you go to buy something from a shop and they don't give you your change of 20 shillings, it affects you. It affects you so much that you complain, you want to call that person names, you stay there and you make a big fuss out of it. So what has changed? What has changed is that this time you feel that somebody is robbing you. But it's the same 20 shillings. How come if the conductor of a M3 does not give you, of the public transport, does not give you your change of 5 shillings or 10 shillings, which is very little in value? I mean, really, what can we buy with 10 shillings today? How come you even fight? How come you get so messed up? You have temperature, your heart is pulsating, you're angry. Why? Because you feel that was your 10 shillings that was you had not purpose to give, but somebody has taken it forcefully. So the issue is not value. The issue is the psychological value that we attach. I don't know if I'm making sense. Okay. So we have to realize that our emotional upset has nothing to do with what happens. Our emotional upset has something to do with the rules that we have attached, okay, or the rules which we create for ourselves when it comes to a particular issue. Okay, I need to kind of say this differently. This example I have used before. Allow me to use it again. So if you are walking and it's been raining of late, yeah? So if you're walking, on the streets, and somebody knocked you, hit you, tripped you, banged you on the side, bumped you, and you fell on some mud, and you're sprawling there, and you're very angry because you are right at the central business district. I mean, you're supposed to be looking your best while you're in town, and you stand and you're about to punch that person heavily. I mean, you're angry. I mean, you want to be very violent. I mean, and then all of a sudden you realize the person who knocked you, bumped you, tripped you is a blind person. Okay, they are walking with their stick there, so you realize that it was not intentional. All of a sudden, and this happens every time, your anger will subside. The question then becomes, whatever happened to you is not exactly what annoyed you. Falling is falling. When you fell, when you soiled your clothes, when you dirtied your suit, when you hurt yourself, when you fell, and the anger was rising within you, you felt justified to either punch that person or to give that person a piece of your, I mean, some, some talk, some, strong conversation. Okay. A piece of your mind. But then how come all that changes when you realize the person is blind? So then it is no longer what happened. It is a rule, all of us, because we all have rules. Okay, so we all have a rule that says a blind person is permitted, quote, is permitted, let me put quote, a blind person, a person who is not seeing, they are blind, they are visually impaired. If they want to knock you off, and you fell, that is excusable because they cannot see. And so it is not intended. Okay, so we have we give them we give latitude. Okay, so in fact you'll get up and you're going to say, oh, Paul, I'm the one who came on your way. I should have seen you coming. But we have a rule that says a grown-up who can see should not be doing this. It is the same thing that happens when clearly, obviously, verifiably, a person who is mad and everybody knows he is mad abuses you. You laugh about it and you go your way. If the same words were used by somebody who you believe, you know, or according to you, you perceive their sin, it affects you, you lose sleep, you want to sue them, you want to punch them, you want to retort back, you want to call them some name back. It affects you, it makes your day horrible, you are low, you are down. So then the issue is not what happened to you. The issue is not being called what you are called. The issue is the law you attach. So then the question becomes, what if you tweaked the law? Okay. So there used to be what do you call it? There used to be a common statement. And I'm sure most of us who went to driving school those early days, I'm sure they still do it today. So the instructors would tell you, assume that you are the only good driver, sane driver on the road. I think what we're trying to say is this: if you are to put to mind that everybody else out there knows how to drive and they are doing the kind of horrible things they're doing deliberately, you are going to work yourself up to anger from the moment you enter your car to the moment you arrive at your destination. So they're trying to say, look, assume that people are all crazy, assume people don't know how to drive. That's why they cut on you. That's why they smash on the brakes, right in front of you, where they should be, kind of veering off the edge or something like that. The moment you do that, you kind of create some space for. It's like that. So I remember when I was teaching my daughter to drive, I kept telling her that there are a number of people who you have to allow. And the words I was using is that you should be surprised if they do the right thing. Okay, I said, and maybe I was a little bit too excessive. I said, whenever you are dealing with public transport, matatus, put it in mind that the probability of him doing something right are next to nil. That way, you will keep your wits around yourself. Because you will constantly be saying things like, Angalia, I mean, sometimes I give somebody a lift, and I have somebody in my mind, and they get so worked up, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm okay, and I'm the one who is driving, and I'm the one who is being quote unquote offended, because I have given a lot of latitude to drivers, and in fact, when people do the right thing, I act more surprised than if they do the wrong thing. So I was telling my daughter, I said, look, it looks like these public transport drivers were born by the same mother. I mean, they all operate the same. I said, that's the first group. I said, the next group are the riders. Okay. I said, don't assume that these guys will operate, right. I mean, just be shocked, pleasantly surprised if somebody indicated, or somebody kind of gave you hand gestures that they want to turn. If not, or ordinarily assume that he can turn anytime. So constantly be on guard. Don't look out. I mean, don't blink. I mean, just be ready. That is the way to keep your wits around you. If not, by the time you come from Kikuyu to city center, I mean, your blood pressure will be boiling. You will be up there. I mean, and all of us here, I'm sure you drive, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm simply saying, what if we tweaked the rules that we have and assumed people are not all that? Okay, because what is affecting many people when they're looking at the political scenarios is that we are expecting people to behave like angels. For me, and I told you, and I was telling my wife, for me, I think this is cathartic. I mean, I think for the first time, maybe not the first time, but this is another time when a mirror is being put on our Kenyan society. This is who you are. Okay, this is who you are. You have a short fuse. You are tribal to the core. People don't reason properly because the issues that are being discussed can be very easily be reasoned out, be discussed out, be managed better, dialogued out. But the truth of the matter is that this is the same society where people get triggered very quickly, and the first port of call is violence, is a stone, it's an abuse. Okay, most people who are online are not exactly your average, what we call keyboard warriors, are not your average stone throwers out there. Okay, maybe they are, but they're not your average. But the fact that people are behind the keyboard, the kind of hatred and bile that they are spewing, it is just as bad, if not worse, than somebody throwing a stone. It is so murderous. You read some of those comments. It is so murderous. It is so extreme. You're thinking, this could be somebody in an office somewhere, probably the big business, wearing a suit, riding a good car, whatever. I'm simply trying to say, maybe we need to lower our expectations. And then we'll be more accommodative. We will realize that, maybe we are over expecting. Maybe we are not there. For me, and I'll be very honest with you, and that's why I don't follow too much. I know people throw stones. I know people behave funny. I mean, I've lived next to a university, where my wife used to work earlier. And a university, by any standard, is supposed to be a temple of intellectuals. I mean, this is the cradle of higher learning. I mean, this is where we are crafting the future professionals. And I can tell you clearly, I mean, sometimes of late it's been fairly better, but there was a time, I mean, it was like a conglomeration of hooligans. Once they literally destroyed my windscreen and windows, and that was a way back. I was driving a fantastic lady called Pauline. Rispa remembers Pauline. Pauline had a small baby that come to visit us, where we live, and so I was dropping them. So I think those who live somewhere in Wangige and some they have a very small baby, and so her husband, my wife, and I. So we're now taking them back. They'd come to visit. It was late in the evening. It so happened that football, there was a World Cup game pitting Nigeria, which was by then doing very well, with some European team. And then power went off. Okay. Of course, we had no way of knowing power went off. And so these guys literally poured into the streets. And they stoned us like mad. It is a miracle because a stone actually literally fell into our car. Some massive stone. And we had a small baby. Destroyed the windscreen and the other, whatever, and so you're now left wondering. This is the one place where you'd be expecting that people will reason and maybe say, I mean, what has got this car, the cars that are driving across, right outside their university, got to do with power outage. Okay. What I'm trying to say is that sometimes we imagine strength. This is what I'm coming back to. We imagine strength. Let me come back. Let me come closer home. Because again, this is something which I keep seeing a lot. So you find the people getting also affected by the fact that some preacher has done something. Hi, Paul. Am I audible,
Hey.
guys?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can hear you.
Yes.
And I thought maybe I lost. So
No, no.
I'm still clear.
Very clear.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you I kind of lost my train of thought. I'd come from the university. I was going somewhere. Remind me.
You are
My
giving an
last.
example of when you're saying that you imagine strength in people, and you're giving an example of something about some preachers,
Oh, thank
people
you.
getting having reactions from certain things that preachers say. Stuff like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Chris. I was saying that let me bring it much closer home because it's a Bible study. I get so I don't know maybe it's amazed or amused. I don't know which word to use. I have many English words and sometimes I grapple to find a befitting one. When a minister say goes off the rails, I'm not saying we should um, we should encourage it. No, 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 please, please, we shouldn't. But what do we expect, honestly, if we are dealing with human beings? And ministers are human beings. Again, I'm not excusing sin. I'm not excusing weaknesses. I am not saying that let's all go do whatever, whatever. But I get this feeling that sometimes we have unrealistic expectations on human beings. Just human beings that are gifted, but they're still human beings. It's a difficult topic, but if you pick it up from where I came from where we started, politics, society, culture, and everything that I mentioned, I want you to see it purely from the same. Oh, there's something I like about the Bible, and it will help me to kind of build my argument. The Bible, it's a fantastic book. I mean, it's an amazing book because the Bible does not pretend that the fact that God's eyes and God's interests are on somebody, that person is all perfect. And that's what I like about the Bible. So, for example, and I want you to do this in your free time. Look at the chronology of Jesus. Either in Matthew or Luke. Look at those characters. Look at those names there. For example, you have Rahab. I think it is Rahab, the lady who the Bible says she was a harlot. She is one of the ancestors. She's in the bloodline. Okay. I mean, look at David and Bathsheba. Okay. Look at just so many people who are there. They're not perfect. And the Bible actually even says Bathsheba, who was Uriah's wife. So you already have one of the great grandparents of, and a great one for that matter, not just great in terms of in time, great in terms of stature. I mean, was a person who wasn't 100% morally, wasn't 100% in parenting. Some of his children even kind of engaged in what would you call it? What would you call it? Brother sister, having affair. You know, incest. Thank you. And the Bible doesn't hide it. I mean, if I was the one writing the Bible, there are some names I would have excused there. I mean, I would have, like the way they do it in a class, what do you call it, classified information. I would have redact. It's called to redact. I would have, blacked them out. Okay, but the Bible says, look, these are the guys, man. These are the guys. The Bible doesn't hide Peter's weaknesses or Paul's weaknesses. That Paul argued with Barnabas, that they argued about John Mark, that the argument was very, very, very stiff, that each went their way. I mean, the Bible doesn't hide the fact that there were issues when it came to distribution of bread, that some people felt that there was favoritism between the Hebrew Christians and the Grecian Christians or the Greek Christians. I mean, the Bible doesn't cover up. The Bible doesn't cover up human tendency, human frailty, human weakness, because God works with all that. In actual fact, one of my best scripture, and I have many good scriptures that I, hold dearly. One of my best scripture is, "Blessed are they that hunger and thirst for righteousness." Because that verse of scripture could have said, "Blessed are the righteous." The moment you insert hunger, you change the whole paradigm of that scripture. You change everything about us because hunger is desire. Hunger is to follow after. Hunger is to look, what you say, with a sense of one. Hunger is a passion. Okay, hunger is more of a journey than a destination. Again, the Bible would have said, "Blessed are they that are righteous." It says, if you are hungry for righteousness, okay, the connotation, allow me to say this before I even move to my next thought. The connotation there is that you are not yet righteous. You are hungry for righteousness. I mean, it's like saying I'm hungry for food. I mean, I'm not satisfied. That's what I'm saying. If I'm hungry, then I don't have enough. The point I'm putting, okay. Okay, so that's my phone's gone off. The point I'm driving at is that when you look at that scripture, it tells you what really matters at the end of the day is, are we growing? I'm looking for a good word. Are we passionate? Are we driving towards? Where are we facing? Okay? Are we trudging in a certain direction? Because when you look at Peter, even all his weaknesses, when you look at Paul, when you look at all the disciples of Jesus, you can tell there is a desire to improve, there's a desire to modify, there's a desire to grow, there's a desire to develop. Even when they sin, Peter wept bitterly. He realized that, no, I have betrayed Christ. This is wrong. And you can see the hunger. For me, that's how I look at it, people. Let me come back to the preacher issue, and then I'll begin to finish. Ministers are men. It's like what the Bible says, Elijah was a man of like passions. Was a man with all the propensity, the inclination, the desires, the weaknesses, everything that you can call it's inherent in a man. So one day he slaughtered Baal, prophets. Next day he was running away from Jezebel. He was a man. He was susceptible. He was vulnerable. He was given to human tendency and weakness. If we were to, let me put it this way, judge men of God by passion, by desire to grow, to change, to improve, to become better, some of these shocks we get that sometimes take us back to nearly giving up and feeling despondent and feeling like casting our hands in the air and saying, who then can be saved? Those things will not happen. Those things will not happen. Because we'll be looking at, okay, so and so has been caught in a compromising situation. What is the frame of his spirit? Is he genuinely repentant? Is he pursuing, what would I call it? Is he pursuing restitution? Is he pursuing growth, forgiveness? Those are the things to look out for, because if you can find that, then you have what it takes. I mean, you have another David, you have another Paul, you have another Peter, you have a good man of God who needs good structures and time and opportunity and space, and they will improve and they will grow, they will mature. But I think the rules we have for men of God are, to be very honest, impossible. And I'm one of them, and I can tell you. I mean, sometimes I look at, how people judge a person, and I'm thinking, really? We judge a person based on their spouse. So the question then becomes, what has a man of God or a woman of God got to do with a spouse? I mean, that spouse has a mind, that spouse has a will, that spouse has They are human. They are free moral agents. They can be passionate for God or not. They can be prayerful or choose not to be prayerful. I mean, and then we judge very harshly. We say, oh, hata mke wake haombi, mke wake anaga. And I'm thinking, okay, my friend, really? Maybe a better way to look at it is this: has he molded God? Has he molded Christianity, to the children, to the spouse? Should we not be judging those people individually, if at all the person has modeled what is required? Okay, that's how I look at it, people. So what is happening in our country, we can look at it in a more expansive way, and we can take lessons, and we can begin to say, hey, look, let's not be very quick. Let me tell you, let me be honest with you. I honestly don't want to imagine, and I want to be blunt here, and I know we are recording. I don't want to imagine what is going on in the heart, the mind of the opposition leader. I mean, to be very honest, I I'm looking at his age, and I can tell clearly he knows that probably this was his best last chance. To be very honest, at his age, strength, charisma, I'm looking at what he had available for him in terms of statecraft, state power, state machinery, media, resources. I mean, and to be very honest, it is not for want of trying. Then, thirdly, I look at the margin of loss. The margin of loss. Sometimes you'd rather lose with 10, with a million than with 100,000. And I'm looking at all those things, and the reality that probably is beginning to sink, that I could have probably spent my last, and I probably had my best chance. And it is what it is. And imagine that maybe something will come out of this. And by today, because I was watching the news, start to realize that might be, the international people spoke yesterday. It wasn't encouraging on his end, to be very honest. They used some very strong words. I think the American envoy said, the last election was the most freest and the most fairest, and say that Kenya has actually become an example for the rest of Africa. I don't think those are the kind of words he was expecting. AU had spoken the day earlier, and they say that they gave Kenyan election a clean bill of health as one of the best, examples. And I read the statement by, I think the guy is called Faki, the chairman of AU. I listened to what Nation said yesterday as the editorial. I read the editorial. I read it to my wife, and I said the media is beginning to interrogate some of the issues, and they're not just reporting. Now they're doing what you call interrogative journalists. They're looking at the issues and interrogating the issues than just reportage. I, flipped through channels today when I was walking, and I found Citizen was even showing normal channels, just normal channels. The first day, the media was just following, and I'm sure these things are playing in his mind that maybe this thing is beginning to lose steam. Maybe this thing is losing steam. Maybe, the churches have spoken, and they haven't said exactly what maybe he wanted to hear. They are simply saying dialogue, be reasonable, stop the demos. So the point I'm putting here is, losing is, and we have lost. Again, I take you back to football. I take you back to any loss. I remember, I can't remember which election it was. Maybe this will remind me. There's an election Kibaki lost, and I really supported Kibaki. I really felt he was a good option, and it hurt me so deep. I really had to kind of catch myself and say, why am I feeling this? It's not like anything has changed really so dramatically in my life. And in any case, what am I supposed to do about it? You know, and I had to kind of, pull myself by the bootstraps. You know, and yet I wasn't the one running. I hadn't spent money apart from queuing and voting. Okay, and so sometimes, and again, as I told you, protest is cathartic. I mean, it's like wailing when somebody dies. I mean, sometimes it is cathartic. It makes people to steam off, and you know, uh, 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 um, bring a sense of reprieve. Um, and I'm not saying everything happening is right. Of course, it's not. I hate the idea that business is not going on very well and stuff like that. Um, my gut feeling tells me Kenya will recover very soon. If Kenya recovered from COVID when there was a forced close down, forced by government, where we closed down restaurants, we closed down offices, we closed. I mean, it was forced. When we were actually even forced to not meet. I mean, today you tell people that there was a COVID and we couldn't go to church for almost 2 years, that we couldn't go to restaurants and we couldn't go to. I mean, if we lived through it, my gut feeling tells me, we'll be talking something very different in the next 2 months. I'm telling you. I mean, we will. I mean, I know when a pendulum swings, when something swings, it swings to the extreme. But if you allow that thing to continue swinging, it will eventually begin to swing somewhere in the middle. Nature has a way of creating equilibriums. You know, when you start seeing certain people speaking, LSKs, ICJ spoke yesterday, and they're all saying the same thing. I saw the Catholics were speaking with the former Prime Minister yesterday or 2 days ago, which was quite something because really, initially, the words were that the church had gone to bed with the government. They had, given government a clean bill of health. It just tells me that it's only that these things take time. But eventually, we are going to find some equilibrium somewhere. Okay. Maybe the bigger question would be way forward. What next? This is me, and I'm saying this in finishing. I think every person, if I had my way today, and I've said this before, and some of you will bear me out. If I had my way, we would teach some basic psychology. By the time people either are transiting from secondary school, because that's about age 17, 18. But by that time, we need to have some basic psychology taught. And some of the lessons there would be coping mechanisms, looking inwardly and asking ourselves what makes us tick. As in, we teach people mathematics, geography, history, and all those things are good. But we don't teach people, and some of these things we learn, through hits and misses. Just some basic understanding of who we are. What makes us tick? Why are we the way we are? What has our parentage, got to do with who we are by age 18? How do we deal? How do we win? How do we deal with difficult personalities around us? What has, for example, those of us who grew in dysfunctional families, how is it affecting us? How is poverty affecting us? How is lack of money affecting us, or too much money affecting us? I think that if I had my way, we would have some 6 months or so lessons on these are the things to expect. This is how people slip into narcissism. This is how you become a very contrarian, antagonistic, difficult personality. This is what makes you toxic. This is what makes you a compliant person who feels that you have to be so agreeable to be accepted. This is why you find yourself wanting to lie, have a socially constructed image, a braggart, somebody who brags about things which are not real because you want to be received, accepted. This is why we feel the urge or the need to create and project a persona which is inconsistent with the reality of who we are. If we can be able to do those kind of things, this is why we want to be lonely. You know, we are lone rangers. We don't want to be with people. Maybe we fear that if we are with people alone, people will see who we really are. This is what religion does if it is not properly embraced. This is what culture can do if you don't properly balance it out, you know, and things like that. If we can be able to do some basic fine-tuning of our engine by the time we transit to university, and hopefully by the time we do university, we do another one before we transit into marriage, maybe it will help us keep putting that mirror I mentioned earlier in front of us a lot, because I think we go through life without an idea us. You get, and some of these things we've started learning them when we are already in a hole. You know, what is winning for us? Is winning somebody else losing? I mean, they did this in Harvard, this research, and I may miss the actual detail, but the general research was people were asked the question of this, guys from Harvard were asking, randomly questions, different, people, and they were asking them, what would make you more happier? Okay. And give you satisfaction. So, and they said, if you are earning, so I'll give a figure because I don't have the exact detail. If you are earning $30,000 a year, for example, and you started earning, say, $40,000, okay? So, as an example, so all of you, so you're in a group, okay? Let me see if I can get my facts correctly. So all of you are earning 30,000, okay? Then you started earning $40,000. That's $10,000 above. I mean, so you're doing well, okay? You're doing well, but your friends, your contemporaries, people at your level started earning $50,000. So you have added 10,000, which you didn't have, which is a plus, which you didn't even expect. But it just so happens that when you look across, you realize that people who are at your level are earning 20 extra, so they're earning 50. Vis-a-vis, you are earning $30,000, the same $30,000, okay, and you lost, okay, you lost 25. So you started earning $25,000. So I'm trying to get the gist of the research, but you can Google it, you'll find it there. Okay. Now, by you losing $5,000 from your 20,000, your guys, the guys who you are your contemporaries, they lost 10,000. So they started getting 20. So they were asking the people, what will make you more happier? And it was agreed that if people who are your contemporaries earn more, even though you earn extra, it makes you more sadder and it doesn't make you happier. So they realized that people were more happier losing something little as long as their contemporaries lost more. So the issue then became that the issue is not the actual quantifiable resources. We feel we are winning if others are losing. I don't know if I'm getting what I'm saying. So if I want to have a car, okay, however better that car is, but everybody else didn't have a car, I'll feel that I'm winning. But if I was to have a car which I didn't have, but my neighbor got a better car, okay, bought a newer car, even if my car is functional, I will feel like if God has not blessed me. And the same thing is happening in Christendom. And that's why you find the prosperity message is like a dog chasing its tail. It is like, I don't know what they call it, when they put those mouses on that treadmill. You are just running on the spot. Why? Because the moment you don't quantify what success is to you personally, you create what the Englishmen called a vortex. I don't know if you've ever seen water that is moving in every direction. Okay, it's going up and down, and it's just wheeling around. It's a very dangerous kind of a thing. If somebody falls in a vortex, I mean, you'll be spinning in every direction, up, down, sideways, and people drown very quickly. The present day prosperity message doesn't have what you call markers. You know, a marker? A marker is like a boundary. Okay? It doesn't say prosperity is me having my own house, and having, some form of mobility. My car is health. It is having a saving that at least can cater for me for a period not more than. So I'll just give an example, maybe a year or two. Okay? So what happens with prosperity is, because it has no markers, a person who is living in a Mabati house should be extremely happy, excited if they owned a house, just owned a house. Just owned a house. I mean, just own 50 by 100, owned a house. I mean, my wife the other day went to visit a very good friend of hers, to kind of pray and just thank God, because the girl, she doesn't have a very big job. She's built a house, in this our general area. It's not a very big house, but it is, and she's extremely excited. But let me tell you what happens very quickly. While you're very busy celebrating that you built your two-bedroom house and God has given you your own space, and now you're no longer paying rent, but you're living in Kamango or Deya or wherever it is, all of a sudden somebody comes and tells you that they have built a 7-bedroom house, with the hanging whatever, and the swimming pool there, and this there, and and because your prosperity, reasoning didn't have markers, you start now comparing yourself and feeling inadequate because it looks like this one has more. Or you start realizing you don't have a car, or you don't have something else, or you don't have good furniture, whatever it is. So a lot of people who enter into this vortex, like I call it, kind of activity without productivity, because it has no marker. They think God has blessed them until 1 year down the road, somebody who they consider as a contemporary, who are struggling together. Okay, there's somebody I normally mention their name, and I won't mention it here because we're recording. I was in them in school. I was a fairly, I mean, I was very fair in terms of education. I mean, I wasn't down there. I mean, I bracketed, up there. And I remember this particular gentleman who I normally mention the name when we're not recording wasn't doing very well at all, to be very honest. I mean, academically, he was maybe in a class, and I was in a pure science class. The pure science class was chosen by way of the first best 40. So that's what they would do it. So in 4 streams, the first best 40 would do pure sciences. Okay. So I'm in this class, and this guy was, say, number 30 out of maybe 40 students, so maybe say amongst the final third. Okay, or the last quarter, thereabout. And this happened exactly, I'm telling you. So one day I parked at some underground parking, these underground parkings. I can't remember, it was a supermarket or something. It's a while back. I had a good car. I thought it was a good car, and so I parked my car, and I was stepping out, and I was walking, and this very well dressed big guy, nice suit, and well built and all that, this guy saw me, and he shouted my name. So there's a way people used to call me when I was in school. It's not the way people call me now, or refer to me now. And so I could tell it's somebody who knew me from way back. So I turned and I saw this guy, and he hasn't changed much. His general facial features are the same. So I remembered him. I mean, he came and he hugged me, and and I could tell because he kind of tried to not tried, he like closed his like locked his car, locked his car using the alarm, and I could see. I mean, it was a proper Vogue, Range Rover Vogue, and I mean, beautiful, nice, and well trimmed, nice wheels and everything. It's just top of the range. And in a few minutes, like men always do, you talk, we are going the same direction towards the lift. So he's asking me where I am, what I'm doing. He knew I was still preaching, he kind of had known, he knew that. So I was asking what he does. And the man is really big. I mean, he is super big. I mean, big, 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 big. And he told me a couple of things, gave me a card and all that. And I could tell he's doing very well. Now, I remember that the latter part, up to the latter part of my day, I was feeling so depressed. I mean, I'm honest with you, man, I was feeling depressed. So something within me kept telling me, I mean, surely, I was so much better academically than this guy. And up to the point where I parked my car, I thought I was doing well. I mean, when you meet somebody with maybe 16 million or 14 million, I don't know how much those cars cost. I know they cost a couple of millions. I mean, you start thinking, okay, I mean, there are cars and there are cars. There is transport and there is transport and status. It began to affect me. That's what I'm trying to say. So I had to catch myself, somewhere along the day and say, hey,